Good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 25th, 2016. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for the matters pertaining to the employment history of particular individuals and contractual negotiations?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Good evening. Can I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for January 25th, 2016. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by Alexandra, AJ, and Zainab, and remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces and those in our community who have lost loved ones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. We have quite a crowd here, Ralph.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. It's always so nice to see our parents and our students. And Mrs. Roberts, we're always delighted that you bring the entire Crumpon School whenever you're doing the good news. We love seeing our fourth grade teachers, thank you, and our illustrious music teacher, Ms. Salustri, and our gifted teacher, Mrs. Crescimano. I'm sure I'm supposed to be calling you enrichment, and that was a slip, so make sure that that doesn't go on the broadcast. And some of our fifth grade teachers are here also. Mrs. Stern, thank you for being here. And I guess every time I see Miss Floor, I think I'm going to say, and there's one of our fourth grade teachers, but you all know that Mrs. Floor was kind enough to move up to the fifth grade, and how lucky for those fourth graders who got Mrs. Floor twice in a row. And I think Mrs. Alessi is here from fifth grade also, so we're happy to see her. And I do believe that some of our special educators are here as well, and our very own art teacher is here, Mrs. Richardson, and it's good to see you, thank you. And happy to see everybody. So thank you very much for being here, and I'm sure I left people out. Whoever I did, it was totally accidental. And in case you're wondering why I'm growing this lovely beard, which I've explained at least 17 times, I'm not making a political statement, so don't worry about that. I'm not going through a crisis, so don't worry about that. And I'm not trying to make up for the deficit on my head. It's much too late for that. What it is was I was walking very innocently through the high school, as often I do, and I was approached and was asked to participate in a fundraiser. So the way this goes is it's for the midnight run. Tomorrow will be my 2-week anniversary, and I have 4 weeks to grow the beard, and then the students get to choose from 5 patterns as to how the beard is cut. So I'm sure that will be very, very ugly. But again, it's all to raise money. The good news is that when they cut it into a pattern, they don't. I wouldn't let them touch me. There's a barber who comes in, and they get to choose the pattern. I could tell you a story, but I'm not going to. And then I guess I only have to go through life with the pattern for one day. So I can do anything for one day. After that, I'm going back to clean shaving Dr. Knapp. So that's that wonderful story, and hopefully I'll raise a lot of money. I have a feeling that they're going to lose money on this deal, but we'll see how that goes. So right now, Mrs. Roberts, we're so excited to hear about who's coming our way.
Well, good evening, Dr. Napolitano, Dr. O'Connor, Mr. Cole, Mrs. Carbone, Mrs. Corrado, and Board of Education trustees. We are honored to be sharing Crumpon Elementary School's good news with all of you this evening, and want to publicly thank all of you for the work that you do for our students, our staff, and our community. This evening, we will highlight how our work is continually focused on the Board of Education goals as outlined in Dr. Napolitano's action plan. This year, our entire fourth grade team have been working on a unit addressing sustainability. Everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends either directly or indirectly on our natural environment. Sustainability creates and maintains the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony. The fourth grade teachers created a project-based learning unit which incorporates STEAM. This unit is about birds and their role in the food web and community. The essential question which drove the unit was, how do the choices we make affect the sustainability of our community? With this essential question as the lens, the fourth grade students explored the following questions. Why do we feed birds? Are birds picky eaters? Does location matter when feeding birds? Do birds eat more at different times of the year? Can birds survive in nature without help? What types of birds visit Crum Pond all year round? Students are focusing on the birds that live around Crum Pond and their sustainable impact on our community. As part of Dr. Napolitano's action plan for the year, he highlighted looking for opportunities to incorporate STEAM into the curriculum. This cross-curricular work lends itself for all students to experience authentic learning while exploring science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. In addition, this learning has enhanced literacy and, of course, incorporated music, which will really surprise you this evening. Back in December, our talented Board of Education thanked our entire learning community for the work we do each day for our children. It is this philosophy and approach to our work which allows us to offer our children opportunities to explore, to discover, and take care of the world. As we educate our students in the 21st century, the topic of sustainability continually plays a part in our lives. Tonight, we would like to share with all of you how our students, with the guidance of our staff, are making a difference in the world while focusing on how our choices impact the world we need and love. I proudly present our entire fourth grade team, and they're all here this evening. So I'd like to introduce them to you. So you please wave as I say your name. Mrs. Burns, Mrs. Day, Mr. Ellis, Miss Fraterola, Mrs. Calagris, Mrs. Kivel, Mrs. Palmieri, Mr. Pastori, our art teacher, Mrs. Richards, Mrs. Ruxtall, Miss Celestri, our music teacher, Mrs. Spiradigliosi, Mrs. Statler, Mr. Thompson, you're going to see his talents this evening as well, Mrs. Quartermash, one of our reading specialists, Mrs. Cresamano, our enrichment specialist, and Mr. Flanagan, our ENL teacher, sitting at the podium with all of you, and of course, our amazing fourth graders. Everyone wants to wave? So let us begin. Here are Mrs. Kivel and Mrs. Burns to share.
The fourth grade Bird Committee created a project-based learning unit which incorporated STEAM, as Mrs. Roberts has told you, and yes, we did have a bird committee. Learning about different types of birds can teach students many different things. Some of the additional topics that are covered in this project-based unit include diversity. With more than 10,000 bird species in the world, many of them coexist in the same habitats. Children can learn to appreciate diversity through birding. This behavior demonstrates to a child that everyone can have something to contribute to society, their families, and their lives. Environmental responsibility. It is easy to see how environment changes can impact birds. Students who are taught to care about birding will learn to be more environmental savvy in order to protect different bird species in their habitats. Geography. Learning about different bird species, including where they live and how they migrate, will teach children about geography. The food chain. All birds need to eat, but not all birds eat the same thing. Children learn about the food chain, and studying each wild bird can teach children about predators, prey, and the natural balance in the food populations. And lastly, history. Studying birds can actually teach students a lot about history. Bird mascots, state birds, and other symbols all have historical significance. And learning about extinct birds can connect human history with wildlife history.
Good evening. The best part about using birding as an educational tool is that students are often so excited to be learning about their favorite animals that they don't realize all the other learning they're doing at the same time. Studying birds and learning how to be a birder can teach kids great secondary skills, such as observation skills to find birds in the wild, listening skills to identify birds by their songs, inferring when comparing two bird species, research skills for studying bird characteristics, patience when waiting for birds to appear. Our students at Crampon are developing an ongoing appreciation and love of learning that will be reinforced every time they see a new bird, spot a spring nest, or fill a bird feeder in their backyard. I would now like to introduce Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Spiradigliosi, and some of our fourth graders to explain how the birds came to Crampon School.
Right here, so right around this way. I want you right here. Just like we did today. Remember, I was right here, right around this way. Okay. Good evening, everyone. The fourth grade teachers, we wrote a legend, and we wanted to share it with you. It is about how bird feeders came to Crampon School. You ready, guys? How bird feeders came to the land of Crampon School. Many, many years ago, before there were bird feeders, the bird species of Yorktown fought and did not get along. While other birds migrated south for their food, the birds of Crampon stayed and fought over the food that was available. Since the blue jay was the largest of the birds, he said,
By far I should have more food because I am the largest.
The cardinal and the goldfinch said,
We are the most colorful and need more food to keep our colors vibrant.
The nuthatch said,
I'm the most agile because I go up and down the trees searching for food, so I should get the most food.
The chickadee, sparrow, titmouse, and junco chirped in and said,
We are way too tiny, and if we eat all the food, we will all die.
The birds continued to quarrel and quarrel until the woodpecker hammered the tree with his powerful beak, and a silence fell over the land of Crampon. The woodpecker said,
We will need the great Audubon spirit for guidance.
So they all used their unique songs and began singing together in a very melodious chorus. Suddenly, the great Audubon spirit appeared in a great cloud of birdseed. She was clad in khaki and wore beautiful binoculars. She spoke in a powerful voice that compelled the birds to listen. She stated firmly,
If you continue to argue and work against each other, no one will prosper and you will all perish. You must unite as one community. I will provide each bird species with their own feeder, but you must share your bird feeder with all your bird brothers and sisters.
The Audubon spirit added,
From this day forward, each bird species will share their feeders with each other.
The blue jay, who was used to chasing smaller birds away, volunteered to alert all the other birds of danger with his loud call. All the birds chirped with glee. And that is how the bird feeders came to the land of Crampon School. We now have a little slideshow we'd like to present to you. So without further ado, I'd like to call up Allie.
My name is Allie, and I'm from Mrs. Callagher's class. Each class will create a Kahoot, which is an interactive quiz about their class bird. The Kahoots will be shared with all the fourth grade classes.
Hi, my name is Adriana. Every class is counting the number of birds that come to the feeders. We count during a 5-minute period. We also record the weather conditions. We tally up the birds to get a total every day.
My name is Xavier, and I'm in Miss Palmieri and Miss Federo's class. For bird research, we used websites, books, and videos. We close-read and paraphrased information about birds in our areas, and we focused on characteristics such as size, skeleton, wings, feathers, and food.
My name is Jenna, and I'm from Mr. Pastore's class. The Audubon Society visited Crampon School in the fall to teach us about birds. We learned many things about different types of birds. We even had a chance to see different artifacts that they brought with them.
My name is Billy, and I'm from Mrs. Tyler's class. Happy birthday. On Wednesday, November 25th, in 2015, we had Bird Day at Crampon School. All fourth grade classes participated by dressing in their bird colors, sharing 3 facts about their class bird, putting up their bird feeders outside their classrooms, and singing Happy Bird Day all together.
My name is Gracie, and I'm from Mrs. Burns' class. The fourth grade classes made their very own bird feeders as a holiday craft. This way we can bird watch when we're at home.
Hi, my name is Tiana, and I'm from Miss Spiritigliozzi's class. We will be reading and studying the poetry book Love That Dog by Sharon Creech. After studying the poetry, we will create our own book of poems based on our bird research. The book will be called Love That Bird. Cardinals are red, blue jays are blue, nuthatches are white, and agile too.
My name is Julia, and I'm from Mrs. Ruxtle's class. My class copied the QR code from a YouTube link. Here is the QR code. I will demonstrate so you can hear our song, Sparrow Song.
I am Jefferson from Mrs. Kivel's class. Each class has a bird feeder outside their classroom back door or on the window. Every day we feed the birds. All classroom bird feeders are different and eat different food. Now I would like to introduce you to Mrs. Richards, the art teacher.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here tonight. I was excited when the fourth grade teachers approached me about a collaborative bird project. Presently, all my fourth graders in the art room are creating birds indigenous to the area using oil pastels and watercolors, and they're coming out great. I'm here tonight to introduce the artists that have worked over and above to create posters for Bird Day. The posters have been framed and will be hung around in Crampon hallways. Without further ado, I'd like you to see these posters. So, first up is Mrs. Calagras's class. They have the blue jay, and this is Alicia and Corey, and Sophia is going to give us some facts.
Male and female blue jays are almost identical in appearance. Males are just slightly larger than females.
Okay, next up is Mr. Thompson's class, and this is the Cardinal, and we have Joe and Julia, our artists, and Brandy is going to give us some facts.
The cardinal is the state bird for more states than any other bird. It is the state bird of Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, and West Virginia.
Next up is Mrs. Palmieri's class with the Tufted Titmouse. And we have Bailey and Kaylee that is filling in for Maddie, our artist, and Alina for their facts.
The tufted titmouse is a small bird about 6 inches long. It has gray coloring on the upper parts of its body with white on the bottom. Something that really makes a tufted titmouse stand out is its tuft. A tuft is feathers or hair that grows up on your head.
Next up is Mr. Pastore's class, the Dark-Eyed Junco. We have Zainab and AJ, our artist, and Alexandra.
The dark-eyed junco is the snowbird of the eastern United States. They are usually gray and white. They are one of the most common birds in North America. The oldest junco was a little over 11 years old.
Next up is Mrs. Statler's class with the Goldfinch. We have Ryan and Zoe, our artist, and here's Brianna.
Goldfinches change color in the winter. Goldfinch babies leave their nest 11 to 17 days after hatching.
And next up is Mrs. Burns' class with the Downy Woodpecker. Here's Cynthia and Nick, our artist, and Tori.
Downy woodpeckers don't sing songs, but they make lots of noise both with their shrill whining call and by drumming on trees.
And Mrs. Spirdigliozzi's class with the white-breasted nuthatch. Here's Tiana and Elizabeth and Jasmine.
There are 4 species of nuthatches in North America. The brown-headed nuthatch, the pygmy nuthatch, the red-breasted nuthatch, and the white-breasted nuthatch. Wherever you look, you might see a nuthatch going down a tree. Thank you for listening to our fact and your support.
Next up is Mrs. Ruxtel's class with the song Sparrow. We have Crystal and Isabel, our artist, and Sophia.
Song sparrows are a medium-sized bird that measures between 12 to 17 centimeters, 5 to 7 inches. They are a streaky brown color with white on their chest and flanks. The song sparrow lives mainly in the wooded parts of North America. The number 1 choice food for the song sparrow is black oil sunflower seeds, although they do eat insects, fruits, and grains.
And last but not least, we have Mrs. Kivel's class with the chickadee. And that is Caitlin and Kimberlyn, our artists, and Cole's coming up with a fact.
Our bird is the black-capped chickadee. It is a very unique bird because when it is in trouble, it has a significant sound. It sounds like this. Dee, 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 dee.
Beep, 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 beep.
Next up is Bailey and Mrs. Burns' class.
The 4th grade bird watchers of Crampon would like to present you with your very own bird feeder so that you can join in on the bird watching fun. As Mary Poppins would say, come feed the little birds, show them you care, and you'll be glad if you do.
At this time, the students are going to be bringing you some presents.
Thank you very, very much. Do you want to give one to? Oh, perfect.
We good? Hi, everyone. Of course, no presentation from Crompond would be complete without a musical selection. When the fourth grade teachers were getting ready for Bird Day, they approached me and asked if I would come up with a song to share with the students during the day. So I came up with Rockin' Robin, and what I did was I incorporated all of the names of the birds that the students were studying into the song. So on Bird Day, I actually sang the song for the students as kind of a surprise for them, but tonight they have learned it and they're going to sing it for you. So here is the fourth grade from Crompond presenting their version of Rockin' Robin. Or Rockin' Cardinal, because we are the Cardinals, Rockin' Cardinal.
Aren't they amazing? Let's give them another round of applause. Mrs. Carbone, Mrs. Corrado, and Board of Education trustees, we are honored and privileged to learn from each of you each day. You all do exemplify our district's motto, come to learn, leave to lead, and serve. We thank you for serving our community and, most importantly, our children. Thank you to all of our staff who joined us this evening for your innovative teaching and your ongoing learning. Crompond staff who attended, please stand up and be recognized. Fourth grade teachers, fifth grade teachers, don't be shy. Thank you. Of course, thank you to our students who are always teaching us each day, and now they're really teaching us about sustainability. Thank you to our families and friends who joined us this evening. Our partnership truly paves the way. And Crompond, all I could say is Crompond is truly an innovative learning community. Dr. Napolitano shared a story some time ago entitled "Stop Waiting" by an unknown author. While the gist of the story was there is no better time than right now to be happy, our learning community is pausing to cherish and honor the world around us. We are not waiting to be happy. We are happy. We are very happy, we are thankful, and we recognize that it's our responsibility to care for one another and the beautiful world which surrounds us. Thank you for offering this opportunity. You're wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is tremendous. I loved it. I felt like after this weekend you brought spring to us. And students, I love your song. Teachers, thank you so much. Crompond is a wonderful place, and we do appreciate everything you do.
So this was extraordinary. The danger always for me is I loved everything that you did, and I'm sad that you're going to be leaving because I have to be here, and you won't be here to keep me company. But the danger always for me is that when you give something that looks like food, I'm praying that I'll be able to give this to the birds tomorrow. I have a feeling that I'll be snacking on the way home. Is this safe for us to eat by any chance? Is it safe? No, Mrs. Burns has given me the ixnay, so I guess I'm going to have to not eat this on the way home. But I think what I loved most about your presentation today is that's the appropriate way for children to learn in an interdisciplinary manner, where you have a little music, a little art, science, math, English language arts, and I absolutely loved. Was that an original? Yeah. That really should be published. This is something I really mean should be published in an article about how to teach children using all of their senses and using all of their subject areas. And boys and girls, I don't know, the 5th grade teachers, you know why they're here? I'm going to tell you. They told me not to tell you. But you know, they're really kind of checking you out, because what will happen at the end of this school year is the 4th grade teachers will be meeting with the 5th grade teachers to kind of draw up who the classes will be. So the reason why Mrs. Floor and Mrs. Stern and Mrs. Alessia are here is they're really kind of saying, this is good for my class next year. So you may not realize that they had an ulterior motive in coming. And you know how I started off the meeting? I have to apologize to poor Mrs. Richards. As soon as I said Mrs. Richard, I hope you didn't hear me. I said Mrs. Richards' son, the sun came out. I knew that wasn't belonging to you. So immediately, as Mrs. Roberts is speaking, just so that you know, I send Dr. O'Connor a note and I say, Karen is Richards. I said Richardson. So forgive me, Mrs. Richards, I really know who you are. It was just like I was so involved with explaining the beard that I kind of lost my train of thought, so I apologize. And I knew I would leave people out, so I apologize, Mr. Flanagan, and also Mrs. Quartermach. I'm sorry, I did see you both, but just didn't click for that moment. But this is the only place in the world where you can have an opportunity to bring students out, and you can count on all of their teachers, no matter how busy they are, and they are all busy all day long, and then they have families at night to go home to and prepare for, and yet they manage to get here and to support the children and to be so enthusiastic about seeing them in the evening as they see them during the school day. What you see at night is not any different from what goes on during the day. This is who our teachers are every day. This is who our administrators are. They love the kids. That's so evident all the time, and I always want what's best for them. So I think in that we're always aligned. Whatever disagreement we may be having at one point or another, the thing that we're always aligned in is that the children are so important to us. They're the future. We recognize that. We realize that. We cherish that. And we know that they're going to do great things. That's always, every year that we see them as they grow up, the thing that we always are confident in is that when they leave us knowing that there are very important things that need to be accomplished in our world. And it's all about their willingness to accomplish those things. So when Mrs. Roberts talks about character and being happy and not taking any moment for granted, that's very important to us. And I hope that what we have the joy of seeing every day at work, you have the joy of seeing every day at home. And that we united, and we're so pleased to see all of you tonight. I'm delayed in wishing you a Happy New Year. I'm sure I did it in my January newsletter, but I do wish you in person all the wonderful gifts of the new year and the blessings of health and happiness, the joy of your children, and the peace of mind knowing that you're in a good place, both in community and in school. And I wish you many blessings. So thank you for being here. Boys and girls, you are so superb. I can't wait to try out my feeder. I'm going to go put it in the backyard tonight if it makes it home. But I told you, Mrs. Burns told me I can't eat it. So I'm going to have to go to the vending machine and find something wonderful. And one last thing, I always like to leave you with a last thing. So when I was growing up in the Bronx, I was a Cardinal. The high school I went to was Cardinal Hayes, and we were the Cardinals. So now tonight when I go home, I'm going to pull out my jacket, which definitely doesn't fit. I'm going to pull out my sweatshirt, which absolutely couldn't even get my elbow into it. And I'm going to look at all my Cardinal paraphernalia. The only thing that probably fits is my Cardinal hat. So tonight when I go home, I'm going to wear that. And tonight in the audience, just so that you know, is one of my students who is one of your parents. And that's, I don't know where she disappeared to, Mrs. Valley. Mrs. Valley, where are you? So Mrs. Valley was, in the old days, she was Lisa Bastone, and she was very, very, very smart. Weren't you very, very smart? Yes, she was. Yes, she truly was. And I went to visit a 5th grade classroom, and I walked into Mrs. Shiland's room, and a student raised their hand. There's 2 students in there. One of them, her mother was my former student, and the other one, it was her aunt. So she said to me, "Do you know my aunt?" And I thought, I know a lot of people, so tell me who she is. So she said, "Nina Esposito." So that didn't ring a bell. So then I thought, there's only one Nina that I ever taught in 41 years, and her name is Nina Lattarulo. So I said, "Nina Lattarulo," and she said, "That's right, that's her maiden name." So I said, "You know, in 1993, she was the valedictorian." So she said, "I don't think I know what that means." So, but there was somebody else in the class that did. They said, "It's the smartest girl in the class," or the smartest student in the class. So I said, "If you give me a chance, I'm going to find her speech, and I'm going to bring it to you, and I'm going to write to her and give her." So I went to visit Mrs. Shiland's class today. I brought the student her aunt's 1993 valedictorian speech. I gave Mrs. Shiland a copy to read because the student who was giving her valedictorian address in 1993 made 2 references. One you're going to relate to immediately, the other one you can just appreciate. One that she highlighted in her speech, where she said, "Remember the first time you heard Dr. Napolitano say, 'I have a few brief words for you'?" And we've been listening to those brief words for the past 4 years. So you can relate to that immediately. The second one she related to was whenever there was a dance, I had 1,150 girls. That's how I lost my hair, to be honest. Worrying about 1,150 girls was more than any man should have to be put through. But I worried about them like you can't imagine. So whenever there was a dance, they were forced to introduce their boyfriends to me. So she made note of that in the letter, and she said, "Remember the days when we used to have to introduce our boyfriends to Dr. Napolitano?" And then the next day when we would come back to school and he would call us over and say, "Lose that loser. Better to be alone." So, and I do remember that. It's coming right back to me. It was an interesting, Mrs. Valley, it was an interesting time in my life, and in yours too. So on that note, Happy New Year and good night, and thank you teachers, and thank you children.
That was really wonderful. It's wonderful to see STEAM in action in our district, so thank you very much for bringing that here. We now have a public hearing, so can I have a motion to open the Smart Schools Bond Act Preliminary Investment Plan public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, we're supposed to have a discussion, so I guess that's Patrice. You want to come join us, Patrice? Yeah, let her sit. Come sit. Anthony will move.
Thank you.
Because he's a gentleman.
No, come sit over here.
Yeah.
No, sit over here. Sit on this. No, I don't want to sit. I'll stand.
just a quick oversight for what this is, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do not.
No, this is just a requirement of getting the money from the $1 billion bond on our share is 1 point something million.
1.4 million.
1.4 million. And so this is the first part of the plan that you're putting into place, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and it's approximately half of it, about 700,000. And there are certain steps that the state has outlined that we are following. The first presentation was back in December. We've had it posted on the website. That's been required for at least 30 days. We provided an email address for the community to pose any questions. There have been no emails. There was a nice article in the local paper, the Yorktown News. So it's been well publicized. And tonight, we're asking for the approval from the board for the preliminary plan, and then the state requires that we wait a certain number of days. I believe is it the 8th of February? 8th, thanks, Yvette, that you'll give the approval to the final Smart Schools Bond investment plan. And at that point, we can submit it to the state. And at the same time, we also have to submit a letter of intent for a portion of the project that applies to connectivity issues. That would be the cabling. We're replacing cabling in a lot of the buildings, and then also providing cabling to classrooms that don't currently have a wireless access point. So that piece requires a letter of intent.
Okay. So nobody has questions?
Actually, I do.
Oh, go ahead.
And maybe this is for Tom and not necessarily Patrice. Last time we took money that the state was offering, we ended up with a whole bunch of strings attached that ended up costing us more money than the money we received. So how confident are we that this is no strings attached and we're going to use it the way we said, and we're not going to have other hoops to jump through that are going to cost us more money than is worth?
Well, first, I'm assuming you're making reference to the race to the top.
I am.
This is completely different. This is a reimbursement for every dollar spent. The plan is approved in advance. There are no other requirements for us. Patrice has put together a terrific plan on how to invest the first half of the money. That goes through the process to be approved, so we know in advance that all of the projects we're undertaking and the money we're about to spend will be refunded through this Smart Bonds money. And we're very confident in it.
Is this more similar to Excel money, the Excel bond money that we got, as opposed to Race to the Top money?
So it seems to be a bit easier than the Excel money. What we are asking you to do is not to include the expenditures that Patrice has planned for the first 12-month period in the budget, but rather, once we have the plan together, ask you to increase the budget to be offset and pay for this with reserve cash that we have, and then we'll be reimbursed at the end of the school year for that. So we're able to do that, and we think that would be the easiest thing, and it wouldn't create any havoc with the standard budget that we're working on now, and it'll be easier to disseminate.
The state has actually used the wording 90 days. So hopefully that is the case.
90 days in dog years?
That's what I have a little less confidence in, but it's
okay. All right, so anybody else have questions? Nope. Then we are supposed to ask for public comment. Is there anybody in the public wishing to comment? Since there's nobody in the audience, I can safely say no. So can I have a motion to adopt the Smart Schools Bond Act preliminary investment plan?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Patrice, thank you again for all your hard work. We appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Good job.
All right.
It was nice
So we are up next to our regular public comment, and we have the same number of people in the audience, so we will move on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. This is going to be a very short report, and I think it was sent to you through Yvette. So there's just a couple of slides. We're really talking about the governor's budget update, but before I go into that, I know that we shared with you on the next slide, Yvette, if you don't mind, the dates that we've set up for when we're going to do our presentations. And on February 1st, we'll do the overview, and then as the board has requested in years past, on 4 subsequent occasions after that overview, we'll have each individual group present a portion of the budget, and then on April 18th, there will be a complete review of everything that was presented. At that juncture, the board would be asked to adopt the budget, and then on May 9th, there would be a budget hearing. So we did want you to have those dates in front of you again. As far as the governor is concerned, if you go to the next slide, Yvette, and I think you may have had an opportunity to look at this. Oh, you didn't? Forgive me. I thought that this actually, I'm sorry. So just make sure, if you don't mind, that that's sent to them, Yvette. I apologize. I thought that you were looking at it as I'm looking at it. So the state aid increase that we know of so far is $250,000 compared to the prior budget. But again, there'll probably be some final tweaks to that, and as soon as we know exactly what we're getting, we will present that in the budget moving forward. There's some building aid increase, while there's BOCES aid decreases. The real talk around Albany right now is the gap elimination adjustment. Well, actually, it's the Board of Regents who is really asking the legislature to remove that gap elimination adjustment completely. Although there has been some change in the governor's current budget, it's not as substantial as we hoped it would be. For those of you who recall, probably back in 2010, at that juncture when the state found itself in debt, the governor had came up with a plan that the debt could be reduced by reducing the amount of aid that was given to every school district. And using a formula, each school district received a little bit less money than what they had received in the past. So that started in the 2010 school year. It's still in effect. Over that period of time, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, over that 6-year period, we've lost about $11 million in funding. So it's a substantial amount of money for the Yorktown schools. This time around, we have found that we have gained, as I said, about $250,000, but we're still short about $750,000 because of that gap elimination adjustment. So what we're hoping for is that the board will put enough pressure on to the legislature, and that will be a law that will no longer be in effect moving forward. I don't have hopes necessarily for the 16-17 school year, because that may be too hopeful and too short a time frame, but maybe moving forward after that. And again, that would make a big difference to the funding of schools, and we really do believe that that is money that is hurting naturally the students and certainly our staff. So, but at this juncture, the expectation is that we will receive $17 million, all of those things listed on the column on the right. We will receive about $17 million in aid from New York State. And then the last slide, and again, forgive me, I really thought that this had gone out, so I apologize. The last slide is just an explanation of that gap elimination adjustment, or GEA, when it was put into place, what it means, and how much money we've lost to date as a result of that. So it's just a small explanation. I know you've seen it and heard it. And I think in this month's, as a matter of fact, I'm almost positive about it, in this month's, what is it that we get? On board. Thank you very much. I think there were 3 charts that explain what's happening with school spending and state aid. So if you've received your copy of On Board, you may not have looked at it yet, but the charts are very helpful. It does give an explanation better than I just did about what has occurred over these 6 years and what we hope to see moving forward. And I think the last thing may be just the date of when the budget vote is.
Okay. Any questions? I just have one. I know that the budget increase for us is $250,000 from the state, but a lot of times the categories where they're increasing are not categories that are necessarily helpful to us. So are the $250,000 of helpful categories or unhelpful categories?
No, they were all helpful to us.
Okay.
There was an increase in building aid, but that's more of a function of our debt service payments based on the borrowings we have. There was a significant decrease in BOCES aid because not all of the costs that were aidable under the BOCES structure previously are going to be aidable going forward at the same levels. And the decrease of the gap elimination all played a part to net out to $250,000.
But they didn't really increase our aid. They just decreased what they were taking
They just
away from us.
decreased the amount they were withholding from us. They're
Yes.
still withholding about $800,000 a year in aid.
So over the course, you're saying it's $11 million over the course of
Well,
6
and when it was
years?
first instituted, they were withholding $1.9 million a year. And then it was reduced last year to just about $1.1 million, and then to this year, just under $800,000.
Okay.
Is it scheduled to go to zero at any point?
That's the grand plan, but there is no template, Tom, to show how it's going to degrade.
One of the charts in that article that is in On Board actually has it and what it looks like at zero. But again, that's just, I think the way they word it, it's under proposal. That's what they're stating right now. So under consideration, but it's not been approved. But Senator Flanagan is stating that Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan from Suffolk County said on January 6th, we will not have a budget if the GEA is not eliminated. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that threat means, but it does sound that there is some pressure to really eliminate that.
But we could eliminate the GEA and just reduce other categories, right? I mean, you give it, take it away up in Albany at times too.
Yeah.
But it's true.
It's
so.
possible.
I'm sorry. I don't want anybody to get their hopes up that we're going to get $800,000 next year, because I don't think it's going to happen from Albany. They would like it to, but I don't think it's going to happen.
And again, if you don't mind, this is just something that occurs to me. I saw this in the newspaper, the Yorktown News, and maybe all of you saw the article as well. It simply says, Planning Board probes Keir Street Affordable Housing Plan. Concerns about traffic parking raised. And again, the only concern that ever I have about any kind of proposed housing is that we're able to accommodate our students, and that we know how many students we're looking to accommodate. So I would hope that if any further decisions are made about housing, whether it be this housing or the Bear Mountain Triangle housing, that somehow we would be in the loop of that, so that we would have an idea of how that would affect us and how we can plan for that. We have, as you know, we have discussed some of the things that we would be able to do, but again, it's helpful knowing numbers. So we would just hope that as planning boards do consider these different housing developments, that we would be included in not our opinion, but just how we would respond as a school district, because we always want to do what's best for our students, and that would be most helpful in our planning. So thank you.
Thank you. We're going to do the education report now.
Thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everyone. We wanted to share an update, an APPR update, the annual professional performance review update with you. As you know, the governor assembled a Common Core task force recently, several months ago, and the task force has released a report with many recommendations, and some of them are favorable to us and to many school districts in the area. So I did want to share, the second slide is a graphic of our new direction in APPR, which I love, because this is exactly how we've been responding to APPR. We keep taking turns and making curves, but we're very flexible and we're doing very well. So what does the transition look like? The next slide I'll share with you is in the Yorktown district, we're currently operating under what's called 3012C. It's the current legislation. The governor, there's been a new proposal and there's new law called 3012D from New York State Ed. But where we are right now is in the yellow area. We're at a time of transition between the two laws or the two guidances. So what we're doing now is working on what's called the transition plan. But let me share with you what the task force found, some of their findings, and that's in the next slide, Yvette. The first one was that the Common Core standards needed to be reviewed, particularly at the K-2 level, kindergarten, first and second grade level, and they need, at those grade levels, they need to be examined for developmental appropriateness, and that's a very good move on the part of the task force. The second, and most significantly, is that there's been a moratorium placed on the use of New York State Education Department assessments in student, teacher, and principal scores for now. Actually, that moratorium is stated until 2019 to give time for the standards to be reviewed before the assessments are ever used for such high-stakes manners or such high-stakes uses. There'll be new scoring procedures based on the elimination scoring for teachers and principals based on the elimination of these assessments. Further in the transition plan, and this will continue, is that all school districts need to submit a new APPR plan under the new law by September 1st, 2016 to be eligible for state aid. Our APPR committee is meeting yet again on February 2nd. We've been very diligent about meeting, and we'll be working on our new plan together with a collaborative group. The assessments are now excluded from APPR, and that would be the New York State Ed grade 3 to 8 ELA and math assessments. Also eliminated or excluded will be the state growth scores that had been developed through data from the Regents exams. So I want to be clear about that. The growth score for Regents exams will be eliminated, not the use of Regents. Still allowed in our APPR is grade 4 and 8 science assessments, the Regents exams, and the New York State Alternative Assessment. And just a reminder, that's the assessment that's given to either between 1% and 2% of our most needy students in terms of assessing their learning. And finally, the New York State, that's called the NYSESLAT, New York State ESL Achievement Test, which is for our English language learners. So those tests will still be allowed for use. Further in the transition plan, and this relates very closely to Yorktown, we now have to calculate our APPR score in a different manner. Because we're operating under the old law, 3012C, in our district, we'll be omitting the inclusion of the state assessments, and then we'll have to take the remaining components of teacher and principal's assessments, and we'll have to scale the scores that are remaining to 100 on a scale of 100. Our data folks are working on this diligently as we meet. In Yorktown, we had applied for a hardship waiver to give us more time to develop a good plan, and these hardship waivers will continue, and that's good news. Permission will be needed for districts to use district-developed assessments, and we're scheduled to apply for that, and that's not a problem for us. And principal and teachers may still have what's called a student learning objective to measure performance, but now it does not have to be in two areas, ELA and math. It can be in one or the other. So I hope you'll see that there's some flexible changes that have been added to the new, recommended by the task force and implemented through the APPR. So I thank you for listening to that. If there are questions about that, I'd be glad to answer them.
Anybody have questions?
I think the only question that I have is that you need to now present another plan by September, right? So have you started those meetings, and are you working backwards? Like,
yes.
What's the game plan?
Actually, to have it, it says September 1st, but they really need to be submitted by July. And yes,
I figured it was going to be
We're in a very good place. We have a good committee that's working of teachers, administrators.
So that's already in place?
Well, yes, it is in place, and it's a great group and a great problem-solving group, and they've been working well together. So that'll work for us.
That's great.
I just want the community to understand something. So when you're talking about an APPR, it's not a 2 or 3 page document. How large are these APPR plans?
I guess it's about 100 pages there's a lot of metrics in the plan.
And how many times has the district, and all districts, been asked to revise these plans?
Well, some of the revision is voluntary. When we see that there's an area that we want to improve, we would initiate a revision. But this will be our 4th go-round, I would say, because we were one of the early districts, if you recall, that had to create an APPR plan.
So this is a big, fat, unfunded mandate because there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of staff taken out of classrooms where they should be teaching to the learning standards that they're trying to figure. It's just ridiculous.
It's a lot at once, that's for sure.
You do it once, and making you do it 4 times is beyond ridiculous. Sorry.
We're making it better each time, Jackie.
I know you're making it better, and I'm not.
You're
It's
absolutely
not
right.
the district, it's Albany, and I mean, that's a lot of money. I don't even want to ask Tom to have to cost what that's costing us.
There are a lot of resources involved.
I have one other question. Is there ever any mention, and I kind of know this answer, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Is there ever any mention of individualizing these plans? I mean, really, for the school districts and their communities and how the district is already doing versus one. I know that it varies, but generally they're always trying to come up with something that fits all different school districts from, urban, everything. And everybody's not the same, So is there any talk of that?
I would just say, and I don't know whether you want to, I would just begin to answer by saying our plan is very individualized. We began by creating our own assessments. We've really worked to customize it very closely to the student population and to our teacher population in the district. But again, there are very standard requirements that there are hoops we need to jump through, and we have been doing that.
And that is the piece I'm talking about, the standards that they put upon everybody, as if we're all the same type of schools.
There seems to be more with the new commissioner and with a task force in place that's really looking at 3 different things. They're looking at the standards themselves to make sure that they're all age and grade appropriate. They're looking at curriculum and how the curriculum is going to be impacted again. And they're looking at assessments, of course, reducing the number of assessments and reducing the length of assessments. And they're removing scores. Scores are off the table. No student scores, no teacher scores, no principal scores. That would be used against anybody.
Right.
So in this transition period, they are talking more about looking at project-based learning, which is what you're seeing here, looking at portfolios. So I think we have an opportunity now to really showcase, and I meant that quite sincerely when I said to Bruce Thompson, it's article worthy. I think we have a time now over these 3 years to kind of showcase the things that we do and the rigor that we are asking of our students over and above perhaps what would be the norm. So to answer your question, are they starting to take a look differently? I would say yes. One, from the point of view, they're being more open with what those assessments could look like. And the second thing, I think they're finally admitting, which is a great thing, that some of the problems that some of the urban areas have are not about the teachers and the schools.
Right.
It's about poverty, it's about crime, and it's about things that no teacher in a 6-hour day is going to be able to fix. And I think they're admitting that it's a little bit bigger than, it's the lack of standard or the lack of the right person in front of the room. Sometimes there are such huge problems that face some students that come to school that can't be addressed by the teacher in the classroom,
Right.
no matter what the standard is, and no matter what assessment, no matter what you're trying to prove. I would always use the example, take our wonderful teachers and put them in a very urban setting where there's a high crime rate and there's a lack of parent supervision and there are drugs and violence and whatever the case is. Put our wonderful teachers there and take those teachers and put them here, and are you going to see any change? I think those kids are still not going to succeed, and our kids will still succeed because we're not dealing with those issues.
Right.
And I think would you agree they're admitting?
I would agree. I would
you
agree.
To that, Chrissy?
Absolutely.
They're admitting that finally.
Yes.
Nailed
yeah.
it. You nailed it, absolutely.
I would just like to add, for the first time in many years, teachers have been invited to create these state assessments. So we're back to some very nice practices. Yeah. So that's very hopeful.
That's great. Thank you.
It'd be nice if we can all move forward together.
You know, we have one little segment of the education. I wanted to end on a happy note, so I wanted to share with you just a few photos from the 5th grade science fair. Last week, the science fair was held at the 5th grade level, and it was a wonderful event for teachers, parents, and the community. And I have a picture of several students. There's Joseph, and he studied the effect of different fresh fruit additions to the making of Jell-O, and he basically answered the question, why can you never put fresh pineapple in Jell-O? And if you're a cook, you'll know why. And he studied the chemical background behind that. And then we have who else is with him? Christopher. He tested and rated different detergents on their effectiveness. And when I asked him, when I probed a little deeper, his father produces one of these detergents in New Jersey, so his interest level was very high. Who else do we have there, Yvette? Interesting, we have 2 Giannas. The first Gianna on the left studied the effect of different brands of bubble baths related to their duration or the life of the bubbles in the bathtub, which was intriguing. And then the second photo is Gianna and Nazjai, and they studied the relationship between using different amounts of baking soda in baked goods related to the texture and hardness and softness of the final product. And what was interesting is they both created a different hypothesis and tested it. So, one of them came out ahead. But it was really a wonderful event. The students choose the topic, they conduct the research, they follow the scientific method, and most impressively is that they present this information and they're asked questions. So they're young and they're learning and they're very, very excited. So I wanted to end on that note. Thank you.
Dr. O'Connor and I had the good fortune of going on the day that the 3rd graders were being transported from Mohansick and Brookside, so that the 5th graders would have the opportunity of sharing their research, so that the 3rd graders would know what was in store for them. And then, of course, it all continues at the high school with the wonderful science research program. And as you all heard, we have 2 semi-finalists, and Andrew Amini is a finalist in the Intel competition. He'll be going to Washington, D.C., where I think he has an opportunity to win $150,000. Wow. He'll be meeting President Obama, and the other 2 students are absolutely wonderful as well. I'm sure you'll be seeing them at some point at a board meeting, and so it's exciting. I had the opportunity to also go to several of these lovely presentations, and I will tell the board this is very helpful information. One of the ones that I went to see is what gives your skin a soft glow. And just so that you know, don't invest in all the expensive products that are on the market. It's Vaseline. So if you're looking for that soft glow, and you're not looking to spend a lot of money, just Vaseline.
Okay. Good to know.
Wait,
there you go.
Who are we kidding? You went up to the cupcake.
That was also,
you went there because you thought it was a different type of...
the cupcake was right. The cupcake was right here. Yeah, right here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're up to board reports. Can we do audit committee?
Sure, just an update on our latest internal audit project. We had our internal auditors, Tobin Associates, do an intensive and detailed review of our IT area. They did a nice job, and on the one hand, they found some, good, robust controls in place, but on the other hand, they have some very useful suggestions as how we can beef up and make our security and our controls even more robust. So I believe, Tom, that's already been reviewed with Patrice, our head of IT, and the action plans are being put in place?
Indeed.
Okay.
We'll
I've sent a copy out to the board today.
Terrific. Thank you. It was very nice to see that report and to see helpful information. It's the purpose of it. All right, fiscal advisory, Mike?
Sure. The advisory committee met last Thursday, the 21st. We reviewed the year-end financial forecast, and thanks to some excellent planning by Tom Cole and his staff, along with some very helpful weather conditions this year and prices of commodities, we are looking very strong at the end of the year as far as our forecast goes. We also took a look at a preliminary proposed budget along with some other topics of interest, and gave some feedback to the administration on what the board will be looking for in their presentations, and we're looking forward to that starting up next meeting.
Karen, policy?
Policies continue, as usual.
They never end.
They never end.
Okay. And steering, we are going to go out to bid. We are still waiting for mechanical at SED. It isn't moving. It's just, they're at the point where they are now allowing architects to review some of the mechanical to see if they can move some stuff. And I think ours is too intensive that it's not going to get through that way, but we were going to try and get it through. So it is not looking good for the majority of our projects, but we do have approval for the tennis courts and for the electrical service to go from the high school to replace that out to the scoreboard and the press box, because that was a big ticket item. So have we gone out? We put the bid out. We have next week, we have the pre-bid meeting, and then we'll be, by some point in February, we'll be asking, if the bids come in okay, we'll be asking for the board to approve a contractor so we can start getting that ready. But the tennis courts will be torn up and redone, very similar to what we did with the track. And we'll put the new line in there. And we're just waiting for SED. I have asked ARIS and KSQ to come within the next few weeks to show everybody, obviously, what we finished for the summer, where we stand going forward, and what projects we have prioritized for whenever SED brings us back our other projects.
Jackie, what's the time frame for the tennis courts?
Summer.
Just the summer?
Yes.
Okay.
Summer for both of them. They'd be
And
actually
do we
very
have
good.
kids on our tennis team that practice in the summer? I would think. And where are they going to be?
The town does have some courts, but they don't practice as a team in the summer. I believe they'll start with the third week in August, but they'll be done by then.
Okay, thank you.
So we should be good with that. So that's my report. All right, we're up to board action items. Acceptance of minutes. A motion to accept the board minutes for the December 21st, 2015 and the January 11, 2016 meetings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report. A motion to accept the treasurer's report for December 2015.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to accept the extra classroom report for December 2015.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have personnel. Upon recommendation of the superintendent, the following be approved. We have certified personnel. We have seasonal substitutes, coaches, co-curricular, resignations. I'm going to read these out. Lorraine Sicali, 43 years. Ralph Mazzio, 35 years. Mr. Tovar, 50 years. Jane Amatos, 13 years. And Mary Linder?
Yes.
47 years. We also have classified personnel, permanent appointments, and seasonal substitute appointments.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Ralph, did you want to, I'm sorry, aye. And all those opposed? No, we're good. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I always, when we see the people who are retiring, we're always grateful for their years of service, and grateful particularly for all that they've done for the students of Yorktown. So, but yet at the same time, we recognize that they're looking forward to their next stage in life, and we support that, and we're very happy for them that they will have opportunities to pursue a lot of their personal interests and personal goals. So we congratulate them.
Yes, and we do recognize everybody at the end of the year.
Yes, we do,
So
and we're
we
looking
will see
forward to
them all
that.
then.
June it is.
June it is, yes. We like that evening. All right, substitute cleaner increase. Be it resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the increase in hourly rate for the non-represented position of substitute cleaner effective February 1st, 2016. The hourly rate of pay for a substitute cleaner will be $13 an hour.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a motion upon recommendation of the superintendent A motion that the following resolutions be approved. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes Superintendent to execute supplemental memorandum of agreement between the Yorktown Central School District and the Yorktown Congress of Teachers Welfare Fund, dated January 25, 2016, providing district assistance in the completion of the Welfare Fund reporting requirements for the Federal Affordable Care Act. A copy of said agreement shall be incorporated by reference within the minutes of this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Professional improvement. A motion to approve the following Yorktown Congress of Teachers Professional Improvement Program proposals.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. A motion to approve the following budget fund transfers.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The Board of Education, a motion that the Board of Education hereby increases the 2015-16 budget by $25,000. This increase is offset by a grant and aid received from the State of New York through Senator Terrence Murphy's office. The following codes will be increased, and they are, wait, I gotta scroll down. $5,000 to contractual expense and $20,000 to the equipment line.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Tom, you want to just explain this?
Sure. A grant for a total of $25,000 was received, to $5,000 of which will be applied toward the education of students regarding heroin addiction, $20,000 to be set aside specifically for the purchase of a scoreboard for the swim dive team.
It's actually the touch pads, right?
The touchpad system as well. It's important to know that this does not increase the basis of the budget for the next year. It just for the current year.
And a lot of times when we get money gifted to us from senators and things like that, it is earmarked for specific things. We don't always have a choice. So the $5,000 on the education, that is a component of the money that he's giving us.
As you know, the senator is very committed to educating our youth against drugs like heroin and other addicted drugs. So he wanted very much for us to include an education component for our own students.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Yes, thank you, Senator Murphy.
Thank you very much.
A motion to approve contracts for health and welfare services provided to resident pupils attending non-public schools in other districts. We have Dobbs Ferry rate and an Irvington rate.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Health and welfare rate. A motion to establish a 2015-16 per pupil rate of $100.42 for health and welfare services to non-resident pupils attending non-public schools within the Yorktown Central School District.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? A motion to approve the following special education payments as of January 25th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We have gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following donations. $5,000 for padding and mats for the wrestling room from the Husker Club, $5,000 for padding and mats for the wrestling room from the Yorktown Athletic Club, $500 from CPDNY New York Energy Corp. to benefit students at Yorktown High School. At Crompond, $500 to be applied to materials and supplies grant at Crompond School from Keith and Tammy Anderson of Yorktown Heights. For the Facilities Department, $500 from the Kushner family, and the Carol Jacobson Fund has 3 more donors.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Everybody's very generous to us. We are up to board comments. Anthony?
Thank you.
Christine?
I'm good, thank you.
Nothing, Cheryl?
Nope.
Tom? Mike?
Nope, none for me.
Karen?
Nope.
No? I don't have anything other than to say that tonight was especially wonderful to watch the collaboration of the 4th graders at Crompond. I love the 4th and 5th grade now come together sooner than in the middle school, and their opportunities to collaborate across the district is wonderful.
Lori is a phenomenal principal, and she does a great job, and she really understands the mission and the core beliefs of the district, and she incorporates it into everything that they do. I just wanted to comment briefly on dance company's performance this week. So I had an opportunity to see it on Friday night, And then with lots of prayer, it snowed on Saturday, not because it canceled that to Sunday, but we didn't have a day off. I'm committed to no closing, no delays, no early dismissals, no insanity. So they moved the Saturday performances to Sunday, and I'm sure that they were well attended. Friday night's performance was great. The boys and girls and dance company did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Wait, let me just add, there was a lady in Turcos who was talking to the cashier, and she said how fabulous it was on Sunday. She had never been to one before, and I was like, whoop, you know, how you just, and she was just so impressed, though.
And they do the
That's
wonderful
the buzz around town.
Thursday afternoon, they do a showing for the senior citizens, which is great. I was thinking of going this year in light of my beard, but I decided against it.
All right, Florence, Tom, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, we have public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.